So if you have any questions, we'll get started. Please raise your hand. We'll go ahead with Scott Churchson.
Hey, Mr. Lee, how are you? Scott Churchson, Stream Punk Soccer. Let's go back to the beginning of last year. We had a changeover, obviously, in a lot of the roster and everything. What was the game plan at that point, and do you feel you're at that point now, being in a playoff spot midway through the season with still the youngest team in the league? Thanks.
Yeah, I think if I reflect back sort of 18 months ago and going into the pre-season of 2023, we obviously had a huge amount of work to do in our roster with all the departures after the 2022 season. So I think across the three transfer windows that we've had since then, so the winter window 2023, the summer window 2023, and then the winter window 2024, I think we've now built a roster and a squad that has depth and competition across as many positions as we possibly can. I think we feel really happy with where we've got to. I think we've got a number of really high quality players. We, as you mentioned, we're extremely young, so hopefully that gives us a lot of signs that there's going to be good potential for growth in the group as well. And so it was a huge amount of work to get to where we are, but I think we're happy, pleased with the results of this season and where we sit after 22 games, acknowledging we haven't achieved anything yet. We just put ourselves in a good position with 12 games to go. I think there's always more to achieve, and there's the nature of competitive sports. We want to achieve more, and there's always feels like we've sort of left some points on the table this year. But I think we're pleased with where we positioned ourselves after 22 games, and now we've got 12 games left to hopefully put ourselves as high up in the table as we possibly can.
Oliver?
Hi, thank you. This is Oliver Strand with Hudson River Blue. I'm interested in the view from 35,000 feet. Conventional wisdom is that MLS is evolving from a retirement league, to put it kindly, to being a selling league. And I'm wondering, where do you see MLS in terms of global soccer? And also, where do you see NYCFC in terms of that?
Yeah, so I think there has been a shift. I think you still see some teams and some players coming at slightly older ages and having a big impact. Obviously, Miami being one of the major examples of that recently. And so, but I do think the league has, over the last 5 to 8 years in particular, has trended younger with DP signings. Obviously, bringing in initiatives like the U22 initiative to encourage teams to sign younger players. And equally, the investments that all teams are making in academies and player development with MLS Next Pro. And so I think there has been a focus to try to make sure that we're developing young players. I think one really good outcome of that is to participate more often in the transfer market. There's huge revenue sources that you can participate in if you're able to develop young talent. And so I know that's been a focus from the league. And so it's so hard. I do get this question quite a lot from lots of people I speak to of where MLS places in sort of global rankings. I think the one thing to say, I think we're improving. I think we are growing. I think we are getting better. I think it's hard to place an entire league in one particular place in sort of the world ecosystem of leagues, because there are some very good teams in MLS that may be able to play at one level, and there are some teams in MLS that may not be able to compete at the same level if you just translated the whole league into Liga MX, for example. And I would say the same for Liga MX. There are some very, very strong teams in that maybe would dominate and really have probably win MLS competition regularly, and there are some that probably wouldn't. And so I think it's hard to place it, but I think we have been getting better. We're improving. I think the natural way that we improve is to have more money to spend on players, and the more that we can invest in our rosters and in our player development system produces better players, and that has definitely increased over the last 5 to 8 years. So I think we're going in the right direction, but I still think there's an opportunity ahead of us, particularly with World Cup coming, to really drive and improve the league again, and and get more eyeballs, more attention, and have an even better product on the field.
Javier?
Hey, Javier, City Boys. You talked about developing players. Well, one example, I guess, would be Talles Magno. Talles Magno's future with this club, where does it stand? I guess is my question.
Yeah, I think the season hasn't been what probably we or Tales expected. I think he had a really strong end to 2023. In particular, remember the obviously Noche Duel game where he was fantastic. And so I think we came in with expectations that Tales would play more than he has this year. Obviously, he had an injury in pre-season. He missed most of pre-season. Played the first game off the bench, but wasn't quite right with his knee. Then I think missed the next 9 games, I think. And so it has been a bit stop-start for Tales this season. And like I say, hasn't been probably what he would want or what we expected coming in. And so, I think we're now with the transfer window opening. We've sat with Tales and his agents and, we'll see what happens. I think, Tales is under contract. We're happy with him. He's part of our squad. He's part of our team. And if that remains, we'll be happy. I think, I know he would like to play more, and I think that's obvious. And so, if there's a situation that exists in the market that makes sense for both Tales, but importantly us as well, then we'll explore that. But we're still early in the transfer window, particularly in Europe, and so we've had no offers for Tales yet, and so we'll assess those as and when they come in. And like I say, if something makes sense for us and Tales, then we'll consider it. But otherwise, we're really happy with Tales in the squad. He's now fit. He's training. He's been on the bench. And so hopefully we see him impact and impact the team as we thought he would do at the beginning of the season.
Andrew?
Hi, this is Andrew Lee from Hudson River Blue. So you talked about your guys' heavy activity in the last 3 transfer windows and another one now approaching. Has anything that's happened sort of recently with injuries or even just in the first half of the season influenced the way you're going to approach this window? Like, do you foresee yourselves being maybe less active, more active? Like, how do you look at it now as it's approaching?
Yeah, I think the starting point for any transfer window in MLS is how much flexibility you have in the roster, and so how many roster spots you have, how much salary cap you have, how much international spots you have, and we don't have a lot heading into this window. We made a purposeful decision in the off season that we didn't want to wait until the summer window, and we didn't want to hold flexibility back for the summer given the results that we saw last season, and we wanted to go into the season with as strong and as complete roster as we possibly can. So as we head into the summer, we've got all of our senior roster spots filled, all of our international spots filled, and so if we want to make additions, they're either in the supplementary roster or it will require a player on our senior roster exiting that would free up the space to potentially bring a player in. So I certainly expect it to be quieter than the last 3, which is I think a good thing. I think we've done a huge amount of work across the last 3 transfer windows, and it's put the squad in a good position. The injuries over the last couple of weeks don't really change the plan. They're all, other than Malachi as a longer term injury, they're all quite minor and quite small, and hopefully we'll see some of those players back even this weekend. So it hasn't really changed much. I think a transfer window is a transfer window. It's an opportunity to improve our team, and we'll explore every avenue that we can within the rules that we have to try to see if there's a possibility to bring a player in who can improve our group. But I definitely would expect it to be quieter, certainly than the last 3 that we've had.
Justin?
Hi, Justin Egan, the outfield. I think soccer is a very simple game. In order to be successful, you need to score more goals than you allow. The guys at American Soccer Analysis have talked about how the focus of player personnel decisions should be framed around their expected impact on goals scored, goals conceded. Is that something you agree with? If not, how do you frame your player personnel and roster building decisions?
I think it is something I agree with. I think, ultimately, as we're making any player decision of a retention or a signing, ultimately we're trying to predict what impact that player will have on our team's success. And as you say, success comes from winning more games than you lose, and to win more games than you lose, you need to score more goals than you concede. And so we're definitely trying to make decisions through that lens and try to improve our team. I think the other additional caveat is, we want to play a certain style of football, and so players that we recruit need to be able to play in our style and the style that we want to see. Or if we're trying to add something to our game, we really wanted to improve our ability out of possession this year. We wanted to press higher and wanted to be better in transitions. We felt like we didn't have as many opportunities last season in that regard, and so somebody like Hannes Wolf coming into the team, that was a real strength of his, and one of the reasons why we brought him in, because we felt like he would add that to the team, as well as Nick and the coaching staff obviously working heavily on that through preseason. So ultimately, yes, I agree with that. it is a simple game. It is complex trying to sign players within all the rules that we have and making those decisions. But yes, ultimately we want to try and sign players that are going to help us score more goals than we concede, and that's what we're trying to do.
Scott?
Hey, Mr. Lee, Scott Shirks from Street Punk Soccer again, if you don't mind. Talking a little bit about World Cup in this particular case, because of the fact that it's going to be so widely vast across the U.S. and Canada here, how is Major League Soccer planning to parlay that into marketing when it comes to just so many eyes on World Cup and, frankly, U.S. soccer? Thanks.
Probably not the right person to answer the question. I don't really have a huge amount of knowledge or insight into marketing. I think what I can say is I think the league knows that this is as it was in 1996 to start MLS as a league. Part of the getting the World Cup in 1996 was to start MLS, and so I think the league knows this is a once in a generation type event, and we as a league need to be ready to take advantage of the natural eyeballs that will be on our league. How we do that, I don't think has been decided. I do know there's a lot of work happening at MLS to try to make sure that from a product standpoint, from a team standpoint, that we are ready to take advantage of the eyeballs that will be on soccer come 2026, also 2025 with the Club World Cup and everything that's happening in this country in soccer. And so I don't have the exact answer of what that's going to look like, but I think everybody understands there's a unique opportunity in front of us, and we need to do our best to take advantage of what that brings for us.
Oliver?
Hi, thank you. This is Oliver Strand with Hudson River Blue again. The primary transfer window for MLS is at the beginning of the year, and the secondary window is right now. That is the opposite of the European market, which I think we can agree is probably the dominant market for players around the world. What are the challenges of having your transfer windows staggered when compared to Europe?
Yeah, good question. There's big challenges. And so I think one of the biggest challenges that we face is that when you look at the amount of money that gets spent by the European teams, I think it's 10x, maybe slightly more of what they spend in the summer versus what they spend in January. And so if we are looking to sell our players, or you want to develop a player that maybe is the right time to sell, that typically or is more likely to happen in the summer transfer market, where it's less beneficial for us to sell because we're in the middle of our season, and usually you're selling a player that is playing a big impact in your team. And so that definitely creates a challenge for us. The other challenge that exists is that our transfer window closes before the European transfer windows. So if we were to receive an offer for a player after our transfer window closed, then not only are we potentially needing to look at accepting that offer, we have to sort of add the calculus in that we won't be able to replace that player because our window is then closed. So probably the third challenge is typically European contracts end in the summer for the most part. And so if we're looking to acquire players at the best possible time, sometimes you want to be active in the market in the summer because teams will ask for a fee to get that player out in January, whereas if you were able to acquire them in July, then they might be free. And so that's something that we look at, and we'll look at players maybe that we want to acquire in January, but given the cost to pay a transfer fee to get that player out of contract, we might then wait until the summer where we can get that player for free. But it definitely creates some challenges to really participate in the global transfer market as much as we might like to. It definitely brings some challenges, and I do know the league is looking at is there a possibility to extend our secondary window or do some small changes to be able to participate a little bit easier in that transfer market.
Daniel?
Hey, Daniel from City Boys. Question. In the last transfer window, we had an influx of forwards, which we needed, right? Because we didn't have a lot of attacking weapons. Is the strategy for this upcoming transfer window to help reinforce the back line with injuries to Burke Risa and the minutes that Kevin O'Toole has played? Is a thought process that we might get more depth and reinforcements in that back line?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, so for us to be able to bring any players in, we'll need to move a player out of our senior roster in order to do so. I think, as you say, we do have slightly more depth up up front in our attacking positions. Again, that was a decision that we made given the season that we had. We knew we needed to score a lot more goals and we needed more competition in our front line. And so I think if we're able to free up some space to bring a player in, it probably would be looking to add some depth somewhere in that area of the pitch. But I think we've shown, I think as I mentioned, none of the injuries that we've received other than Malachi's are particularly serious, and so hopefully we'll see some of those players back right now. I think one of the biggest challenges that we have with the injuries right now is, if we had the same number of injuries, but they were spread out throughout the team, you probably don't feel it. It's difficult for any team in MLS in any position when you get all these injuries and they all seem to be impacting one position on our squad. And I think we've done a good job to try to manage that. But yeah, if there's a possibility to add players, then that's probably an area that we would focus on.
Justin?
Hey, David, can you talk a little more about Hannes Wolf? He's been a really important player for New York City this season, and you invested a lot of resources in him, close to a max TAM contract. The analytics love him. He already has 10 goal contributions, but there was some risk involved in his signing. In his last season with Gladbach, he played less than 500 minutes, and he has an injury history. Could you give us an inside look at what his recruitment looked like and how you assess the risk of offering him that big TAM contract?
Yeah, so I think Hannes has been with one of our most important acquisitions in the off season, knowing we didn't have any available DP spots to be able to sign a player. So when Hannes became available, we were definitely looking. We knew we had obviously Hooley on as a right winger. We knew Maxi was injured. We wanted to find a player who could be versatile to play inside or on the wings. And we were in discussions with a number of players when Hannes became available. And Hannes was in a good situation at Mönchengladbach. He was under contract. He had interest from a number of clubs in Europe. I think as we did more and more work on watching him play, he's in a difficult situation in Gladbach from personal standpoint. He wasn't playing. I think the club were looking to try to exit him. But as we look back and we saw his loan spell at Swansea in a different position, he played really consistently at Swansea and did a really good job. The references we had from that loan spell were outstanding. We spent a lot of time, both Nick and I and our scouting team, getting to know Hannes over a period of time. And I think what was really interesting for us is he was just as interested in a move to MLS as we were interested in acquiring him. And it is unusual to get a player who's moved for 20 million in transfer fees at the age of 24 that wants to come to MLS on a non-DP contract. And so we knew it was going to acquire. We probably spent more in that position than we had originally planned in the off season, but we felt like Hannes was a really important piece of what we wanted to do and would add versatility and competition across all of the front line. He can play on the right or the left or inside. He's also played as a second striker, and so we felt like that was a worthy investment. And I think, as you said, the analytics rate him really highly. I think his chance creation numbers are excellent. Probably should have a few more assists than he does this season. But I think he's been an outstanding addition for us, and is also a player that I think can grow and improve as well. This is his first 8 months in a while or 6 months in a while of playing really consistent football, and and I think he's only going to get better and better and better as he continues to develop and play. And I think, in speaking with him, I think he's enjoyed his experience so far in New York and with MLS, and we're looking to continue to take the next steps together in his career, and get him continually performing at the highest level he possibly can.
Trey?
Hey, David. We know that you have gone to Europe to visit some potential players and made some signings. And then Santiago Rodriguez said in this past offseason, you visited him in Uruguay as well, and that meant a lot to him. Can you go into kind of that part of your strategy and the personal side of it?
Yeah, I think every player signing is slightly different. So it was 2 years ago when I went to Uruguay to spend time with Santi when we were acquiring him permanently. So it was the end of the 2022, ahead of 2023 season. And I think I built a relationship with Santi while he played here. Obviously, he'd been on loan for a couple of years. But I think it's really important, every player needs something slightly different. And I think it was really important I had a conversation with Santi and his family over Zoom initially about the possibility for him to return. And while Santi was on our roster before, he was on loan, and so it was an entire new acquisition process that we had to go through in order to convince Santi to return. And so I think that became really clear for me that I needed to go down and spend some time with him. I actually left without having a deal in place, and we weren't able to agree terms at that point. But I do think that visit allowed us to set the table for come January. I think it was maybe 4 or 6 weeks later that we were actually able to finalize and agree a deal. And so I think it's I have to try and keep a professional relationship with all the players. Ultimately, I'm probably having as many difficult conversations with our players as good ones, sometimes not being able to offer them the contracts that they want. And so, but I think that has become, I think Santi's been absolutely outstanding this season. And I think, we're seeing his growth and his trajectory. And I'm delighted that we were able to convince him to return to New York. And I'm looking forward to seeing him continue to perform and get better and better.
Andrew?
Hey, Andrew Lee from Hudson River Blue again. I had a question related to homegrown players. So we saw Christian McFarland debut this season, but he's also been reportedly linked to a move to play in Europe relatively soon. Andres Jason also left. And obviously there's still the sort of like trio of almost original homegrowns in Sands, Gray, and Justin Hack still on the roster, but it's been sort of a gap in time between signing homegrown players and seeing them sort of break through with the first team and actually be a part of the first team. Has there been any shift with the sort of advent of MLS Next Pro in how you guys view the, not only like who you signed, but like the trajectory of their time starting from the academy to getting to MLS? Like, how does that sort of all work from how you guys are integrating your homegrowns, I guess?
Yeah, I think part of, so they're slightly different. Andres versus Christian, really different pathways, right? So Andres goes to college for a semester. We would have liked to assign Andres before he went to college, but signed after his first semester at college in the middle of COVID. And so he was coming to us, I think 18, 19. Christian signs at 14 and a half. So I think what we have learned is that we are producing players consistently from our academy that attract interest from many European clubs, and it's critical for us that for as many of those as we possibly can, that we convince them that playing for New York and signing for us is the right step in their career. And so if I look back at sort of speaking to Christian and his family when he was, I think I was first started sort of a potential contract conversation right when he turned 14. That's a huge, really early time to try to make those judgment calls of what these players can project into in the next years, and then having to make sort of a contract commitment to those players of a long term. And so I think it's natural when we sign players at that age that it's going to take them some time before they are ready to compete in our first team. I was delighted to see Christian's debut. I think he's got huge potential. His performances for England under 17 have been consistently excellent. I receive unbelievable feedback from when he's there and what they think of him as a potential player for the future. And so but I think there are different strategies within our academy. Our main goal is to sign as many of our high potential players as we possibly can and give them a route into our first team, and then help them achieve their ambitions and beyond. And so for somebody like Andres, who was coming to the end of his contract, we had a conversation with him, and may have been difficult to keep him on a contract for next season. And so one of his ambitions was to play in Europe, and so we worked together to try to find a solution that could fit all parties. And I'm really looking forward to seeing Andres. I'll hopefully be able to travel to Denmark on one of my scouting trips and be able to see him and watch him play, to see how he's doing, or following his career with great interest, because he was a fantastic ambassador for us and played a real big impact. I think he played 20-25 games, mostly from the bench, but played in 20-25 games of the season we won MLS Cup. So hugely important homegrown player for us, and looking forward to seeing his next steps in his career.
Javier?
Hey, when you look at the striker position, Alonso's kind of taken over that position, but you did bring in Musef and Hoban to kind of get that number 9 position. Is there any concerns that they haven't grown to be those players that were expected to be?
No concerns. I think sort of natural ups and downs through any season or even over a couple of seasons I think are normal. I think Munsef came in, I think made a big impact for us at the tail end of last season. He certainly improved the way our team played. He gave us a threat in behind that we really needed. I think Munsef played really well at the start of this season. Obviously it didn't come with goals, but I think he played really well and was a real threat for our team, and obviously we needed him to get to score more consistently in order for us to achieve our ambitions. I think Alonso's come into the team really recently, and I think he's performed at a really high level as well, even without his goals. I think his movement, his sharpness up front, I think has caused a lot of danger for teams. And so I don't think there's any concern. I think on Jovan, we've been through this quite a few times now, signing some of the younger players. Even some more experienced players in their first move away from home, there's adaptation stuff that you have to be there, support, help them through some of those moments that are not easy. Huge belief and faith in Jovan, and that he'll prove to be what a fantastic player that we saw when we were scouting him. I think it's a good thing that we've got a lot of competition in that number 9 position. I think whoever does have that shirt knows they have to perform, because there are two players in training that are really fighting to play, and they all want to play, and it makes Nick's job pretty difficult on a weekly basis to determine what's going to be right for the team. But I think if we look at across the 3 strikers, I think we've got 10 goals in 22 games from them. That's an okay return from our number 9 position. Obviously, normally that would be from one player. For us, it's across 2 or 3. But I think we've been okay with our production there right now, and I'm looking forward to seeing the competition between the 3 of them to see who will play the most games in the next 12 that will help us finish as high in the league as we possibly can.
Final one, Justin.
Hi, David. One of the decisions you made this offseason was to not bring in veteran competition for Kevin O'Toole at left back, which is intriguing from a team building standpoint, because you don't really see too many super draft picks drafted outside the first round lockdown starting spots like Kevin has. How did you make the determination that Kevin was your guy? And can you also talk a little bit about where the super draft fits into how New York City builds its roster?
Yeah, so I think it was a conscious decision, as you say, in the off season. I think as we look at how we had to allocate our resources, we had a number of senior roster spots, we had a number of sort of amount of money that we had available to spend, and I think we wanted to focus on the positions that we added. I think Kevin had proven and performed at a really high level. He sort of, if we go back to 2022, he came into the season late as a left wing back, but I think we all felt like he performed outstandingly well in that role. And then as we moved to play a back 4 last season, it took him a while to, I think, get adjusted to the position of playing a back 4. We had Brian Coufray in that role, but I think Kevin performed so well in training. He took that spot as well at the end of the season, and I think we felt, and it was a belief that we felt he was going to be a high-level left back that could play consistently across the season and help a team that wants to go and win MLS Cup. And we felt like Kevin was able to do that. And I think so far, I think Kevin's been a really good, really very, very good performer for us. And I mentioned it a little bit in the previous answer around sort of the young homegrowns, and I think we also have a huge amount of belief in Christian McFarlane. And so one of my challenges is I have to build a team that is competitive to achieve our targets right now, while also providing pathways and opportunities for some of our young talent. And if we want to convince some of our highest potential young players from our academy to sign, like Christian absolutely is, then we have to show him that there's an opportunity to earn minutes. And so if you continually block a young player's pathway, it makes it really hard for them to get into the team and show how good they are. And so I think it was a combination of what our belief in Kevin and his ability to step up and be sort of a regular starter in our first team, and then huge amount of belief in Christian and his potential of what he is able to do. In terms of the super draft, I think it might be recency bias with Malachi and what a fantastic addition we felt he is to our team. I think the super draft has a huge amount of role in building a really successful MLS team. I think if you look at the most successful MLS teams, they will have players that they have either produced from their academy and grown with them and play in their team, or they've acquired players from the super draft that are able to be consistent players for them over the 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So I'm thinking of somebody like a Christian Roldan for Seattle, for example. And so for us, I think, it was maybe the only silver lining of the season that we had at the end of last year was that we ended up with a high draft pick, and that allowed us the possibility to hopefully acquire Malachi, and then that obviously turned into reality, and we were able to actually select him and then convince him that he should leave school to sign with us. So I think the super draft will continue to be a critical avenue, and I think teams that do really good scouting. It's hard scouting. There's a huge amount of competition, huge amount of players, all in a very condensed time period. So it takes it's sort of a really heavy lift to be able to scout that effectively. But I believe there are a number of players that come from college that make an impact. And when I look at our team or our squad, we've got players that we've acquired via trades, we've acquired from international markets, we've acquired from the super draft. I think we've really tried to maximize as many avenues as we can to be able to build as competitive roster as possible.
It's only worth it if you work for it. It's only worth it if you work for it. I won't stop till they hear me now. I won't stop till I wear the crown.